Good evening and a very warm welcome to our continuing coverage of a special broadcast of India Matters from here in Kashmir. I'm in Srinagar today, a day when it is day 3 of Operation Synindhur. And one of the big highlights of what day 3 brings is phase 3 of India's punitive attacks against Pakistan. The Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson and the Foreign Secretary and the Armed Forces officials have just announced what this really looked like, and it involved a big exchange of drone warfare across the line of control and the international border. We now know, for instance, the stunning reality of how at least 400 Pakistani drones that were aimed to penetrate Indian air defenses, to test Indian air defenses and perhaps attack some targets in India were all intercepted using Indian technology. All 400 of those Pakistani drones from Leh all the way to Sir Creek in Gujarat basically ate Indian dust. And here's the clincher. In India's retaliation, which was basically phase 3 of Operation Synindhur, India launched drones back at Pakistan last night, and at least one radar installation, a very expensive radar installation, was completely destroyed. Listen in.
With an intent to target military infrastructure, Pakistan military also resorted to firing of heavy caliber weapons along the line of control. Along the international border and line of control, drone intrusions were attempted from Leh to Sir Creek at 36 locations with approximately 300 to 400 drones. Indian Armed Forces brought down a number of these drones using kinetic and non-kinetic means. The possible purpose of these large-scale aerial intrusions were to test the AD systems and gather intelligence. Forensic examination of the drone debris is being undertaken. Preliminary reports suggest them to be of Aziz Guard Songa drone of Turkey.
And the second part of today's briefing has put Pakistan in a global spot of trouble and labelled it once again as truly a state sponsor of terror. The Indian government today has officially pointed a finger at Pakistan and said when they were launching that swarm attack of drones on India, shockingly, Pakistan did not close their airspace. In other words, they allowed civil airliners to fly in their airspace at a time when Indian surface-to-air missiles and air defense systems could have been triggered and could have endangered those flights. In other words, Pakistan didn't give two hoots about international airlines using its airspace as long as it could have trapped India into firing missiles at their drones and them mistakenly perhaps hitting an airliner. In other words, Pakistan was using passenger aircraft as a human shield trying to target India. Listen in for yourself. This is formal and from the Indian government.
Pakistan is using civil airliners as a shield, knowing fully well that its attack on India would elicit a swift air defense response. This is not safe for the unsuspecting civil airliners, including the international flights which were flying near IB between India and Pakistan. During a high air defense alert situation in the Punjab sector, as you have seen, the airspace on the Indian side is absolutely devoid of civil air traffic due to our declared closure. However, there are civil airlines flying the air route between Karachi and Lahore. Indian Air Force demonstrated considerable restraint in its response, thus ensuring safety of international civil carriers.
The big question now, with 3 nights since Operation Synindhur began, there has been conflict, there has been frenetic combat between the two sides, drone warfare has taken place, missiles have been fired, or many of these aspects have been captured on camera. It has been a tri-service operation. All of the armed forces on both sides are engaged in some way or the other. The big question now is, at the end of day 3, since those big strikes by India began, what next? Will there be an escalation again, or will there be a de-escalation? All of those Pakistani drones were shot down. Does that mean they will be pressured to launch another attack tonight, even perhaps against India? Let's try and make some sense of it by none other than General Bikram Singh, former Chief of the Army Staff, someone who's been the Eastern Army Commander. He's also commanded the corps here in Srinagar. He's also commanded a division in Akhnur, which has come under attack and is one of the places where Pakistan is violating the ceasefire in a very, very big way. General Singh, always a pleasure to see you and a privilege to have you at this time. I wanted to start by asking you, General, your reading of the last 3 days and what you think could happen next. Things are extremely tense, very, very volatile, extremely high, rate of preparedness and readiness on the border as well at this time. Your take on what you think might happen next, sir?
Right. Shiv, firstly, let me compliment you for the stupendous reporting from a very challenging arena. And having commanded 15 Corps, I know it's a very, very challenging arena, and you've done a great job. My compliments. Right. So far, what we've seen of Pakistan, essentially, they've been actually trying to counter what we did by neutralizing their 9 terrorist camps. And it was a face saver. It started from there. But as you know, that my first interview, my first discussion on NDTV, I had brought it out on the 7th. That let's not talk of non-escalatory this thing. It is going to escalate. I had mentioned that day only, and it has escalated. And I personally feel that it will escalate further. And the reason is that the very fact yesterday, last night, there were 300 to 400, these drones that came in, and right from Ladakh going down to Gujarat. I personally feel at different 36 points, the endeavor was to ascertain, besides, of course, the location, efficacy of our AD systems and the location, I think to gauge how we are poised at the moment with regard to conventional warfighting. Because at the moment, what we are seeing actually falls, the warfighting, when you find it actually starts off with seizing initiative. What is happening from both sides is seizing initiative. Decisive operations start off once the ground forces come into play. Now, quite possible that this reconnaissance which was carried out last night was to gauge to discern how we are deployed along the line of control, along the IB, and then perhaps, plan their offensives accordingly. The only point I have to mention here is that while we've been talking in terms of 4 to 5 days of war endurance of Pakistan, the very fact, the way they are going about their operations, I feel they would have received, a lot of support from Turkey as well as from China. And that, of course, is a known fact. Turkey has already pledged support, and China would do it. Let's be very clear. The southernmost artery of the CPEC runs very close to the international border, what they call Peshawar-Karachi motorway. Correct. Along this. So they have lots at stake. $65 billion have been spent by China on CPEC. So they would be concerned about it. And also the fact that, at Pahalgam, the satellite communications being used by the terrorists, those satellite instruments were from China. Correct. So what I'm coming to is that with the support of China and Turkey and other perhaps some players of the Muslim world, Pakistan may be tempted to up the ante for a while.
What is that going to look like, General, if I could, pick your brain on that? When you say that things seem set for some kind of an escalation and you have no doubts about that, what could that actually look like? More drone strikes, something else altogether? You've dealt with this kind of thing, so we'd like to know what you think.
Shiv, this is a new kind of warfare, which we've seen in Central Asia, we've seen in West Asia. Excessive use of drones. It is the best way to fight a war where your people, your personnel, your combat power is safe. And you are, sending these armed, aerial platforms into the enemy territory to strike. So this is definitely going to be priority one with heavier weapons. Because yesterday, the drones that came in, majority of those were devoid of, armament, devoid of any, kinetic means to cause destruction.
Warheads,
Yes, warheads. And I feel they'll start using warheads now, number one. Number two, when they escalate, the air power will come into play. But then we have air dominance. Our Air Force has done a great job. And but yet they will try with their Air Force, certain airfields, certain military installations, certain military headquarters, certain military vulnerable areas, vulnerable points. They will try and take these on. And definitely airfield. They tried certain airfields, they will do it again. But as far as the ground operations are concerned, I would not like to. I'm aware of the plans fully. I would not like to give out that. It's very sensitive as to what they might do. But let me assure you that
Absolutely.
our positions are well fortified. Our offensive combat power is well poised to take on any contingency.
Is there a scenario, General, I'd like to ask you, where China may try to provoke as well in order to sort of divert India's attention or divide our focus? Is that a possibility if this escalates further?
No, I don't think so. I don't think they will get into overt, means. China is aspiring to be it's a global power already. But the point is that perhaps to further bring down the stature of United States and be above it and be of a preeminent kind of a world player, it would like to have India on its side. It will not overtly get into these operations against us, but yes, covertly it would continue to support Pakistan.
Interesting. Okay, it would continue to support Pakistan, but overtly it might not actually get into things. It's been the third night, General. It was 2 weeks after the Pahalgam attack, that India conducted these punitive strikes against Pakistani terror infrastructure. They've responded, as you saw, General, by targeting Indian military establishments. They were not successful, but they did make a very big attempt, not once, but twice. Does this change the rules of engagement for India in your view? Because so far India has emphasized in official statements and otherwise that its response and actions have been non-escalatory, restrained, and only, targeting terrorist infrastructure, and only after Pakistan had escalated to military infrastructure did they attack, radars and air defense installations. Is there going to be a change in the rules of engagement in your view?
Well, the rules of engagement are already changing. Let's be very clear. You see, Shiv, if you see 65 war, 71 war, the targeting of the airfields was undertaken in conformity with the conventional ground operations. They preceded ground operations every time. And in this case, now what they've done is instead of using air power, they've used these drones. And why they have come into this depth is because we went in 100 kilometers at Bahawalpur to destroy the Jaish-e-Mohammed headquarters.
Yes.
So I think it's basically tit for tat kind of a policy they're adopting that, look, you did this, we are going to do the same thing. So they're trying to come in perhaps, in places like Bathinda, certain other areas in Punjab, in Rajasthan, they'll try and do. But the point is, they will target our military establishments. They will certainly do that. And I think we should take them on equally well. The other thing, Shiv, I would like to highlight is that, my personal views, they may not be supported by very many, strategists. I think we are at the moment on a reactive kind of a mode. They are hitting us, we are hitting back. It's high time, I think, we need to declare our threshold of tolerance. To what extent are we going to tolerate this nonsense by Pakistan? Is it going to be an open-ended affair? Is it going to continue for months? So we have to identify as to what are those red lines and define our threshold, and thereafter, in no uncertain terms, tell Pakistan that you go beyond this, we are going to hammer you nice and hard. I think that is very much required, and it must be stated at the earliest.
This is very, very important point that you made, and I was having a conversation with someone who, had something to say about, the moral high stand that India takes, maybe, tying our hands as far as drawing those red lines for Pakistan is concerned. Last question, General, very, very briefly. I've just come back from Kupwara and Uri, where we've been reporting on these ceasefire violations. We're looking at shelling happening on both sides, Pakistan directly targeting civilian areas. When you were in charge and looking at these things, have things changed, or are Pakistan's playbook exactly the same, escalating from small arms to artillery, targeting civilian areas and that kind of thing, sir? Has that changed?
Yeah, by and large, Shiv, it is same. Because I'll tell you, I commanded my battalion in Tangdar, and we used to have our certain villages which are in the hinterland, behind the range, being targeted. And in fact, there were certain areas from where Pakistan was dominating. They could look into the Tangdar Valley and take on these civilian establishments as well. Besides, of course, the army installations and army headquarters. We have a brigade headquarters over there. Now, as far as the fire assaults are concerned, definitely the employment of the kinetic means has gone up. During my time, I remember when I commanded and also when I was the co-commander, we went in for heavy artillery on a number of occasions, medium artillery. We also went in for long-range AD weapon systems, L-70 guns, targeted towards. We took on a large number of bunkers we used to destroy. So these kind of and of course long-range machine guns and all that. These kind of things were going on, and they used to launch bat actions. We used to also go across and hit them and get back. These kind of operations have gone on, but definitely when you see the dimension of the drones coming in, there is definitely rules of engagement being changed. But when you say rules of engagement, these are from the ability and I would say the freedom being given to the defense forces to use their armament. And the government has announced that they are given a free hand to the military. But I personally feel that it's high time we stop talking in terms of a responsible response. Let's not talk about when war fighting starts out. There is no responsible response.
I'm very glad, General, that you made this point about, being reactive and this being they do something and you hit them back. It's about, setting the agenda, setting the benchmark and dictating the pace of this exchange. I couldn't agree with you more, and I'm so glad a former Chief of the Army Staff has said it. I thank you for your wisdom and your views on this evolving story that is shape-shifting with every hour. General Bikram Singh, always a pleasure and a privilege. Thank you, sir. I'm going to show you precisely what those ceasefire violations actually look like. After a night of one of the heaviest confrontations between India and Pakistan in the aftermath of Operation Synindhur, I'm standing here in Lagama village in Uri, where the first manifestations of Pakistan's escalation last night, as announced by the Indian Army this morning, is fully apparent. This is a row of shops that has been completely decimated in a direct shelling strike. Probably the worst damage that we've seen so far in our travels around Uri. And this happened late in the night at about 3 a.m. Once again, nobody was inside, but we hear there have been some injuries. There's still smoke rising from the debris of what were once 3 shops. A familiar, ghastly image of where the shells are impacting here near the line of control in Uri sector. But the damage is actually much worse. And I want to show you where else shells actually may have landed. There are ambulances moving to and from this place because there are so many injured people who constantly need to be picked up. This here is now on the mountainside, built here, a row of houses under construction here. This is all that's left here. Please look at this, viewer. We will not be turning our cameras away from the suffering of the people who live in these areas who never get to leave. This is all that's left. The familiar motif of mangled metal sheets, corrugated sheets that people use as roofs, firewood, chopped pieces of furniture, and the only remnants here, livelihoods completely destroyed. These were once shops over which someone was supposed to have built a house, we are told, and this is all that's left, just splinters of wood and metal, which has become almost like a representative image of what's happening to village after village here in Uri. This is absolute grief here in Uri, where we're reporting. We're going to try and be as sensitive as possible, but it's important for NDTV to capture some of this grief because the nation needs to know what this family has suffered tonight. I want you to listen to their voices, viewer, because they've lost a mother, they've lost a sister, they've lost a wife, they've lost a friend. Unspeakable scenes of sorrow and horror for one family here in Uri as they come to terms with the loss. of someone in their family because of a shell. They've lived here for so long. They don't have bunkers. They didn't think they were in the line of fire. And they've just faced the most unthinkable loss here. And I'm trying to report this as sensitively as possible. My instincts tell me that, you know, it's terrible to show this kind of grief, but the nation's attention is fickle, viewer. And that's the reason why I do want to keep my cameras trained on this unspeakably sad moment here in Uri, very close to the line of control. A girl has lost her mother. She's lost consciousness. There is a huge amount of disbelief here as the body of Nargis Bano, just 45 years old, has been taken away from here. Small children, women, men, all of them in tears as the rain comes down here in Uri. It's not going to wash away any of the sorrows that we're seeing here. And we will continue to report. This is a picture of Nargis Bano. I want to warn our viewers that these are upsetting scenes. These are extremely upsetting and troubling and unsettling scenes. Just imagine what these families are going through. It is always a dilemma for a journalist on the ground to depict grief, but having visited Uri for the 4th time today and to have run into this family, this young woman who's just lost her mother, you know, I asked myself, isn't this insensitive? We're constantly asked questions as journalists, you know, why do you invade the private spaces of families that are grieving? And a few of these people just said to me before we went on air, they welcomed me. They said, you know, we want our faces to be there so that the people of the country can see what has happened to us. Her name is Nargis Bano. She was 45 years old and she was killed in a car. Her members of her family are grievously injured and they've been taken to hospital. Sir, क्या हुआ था बता सकते हैं? वो गाड़ी में थी?
गाड़ी में जा रहे थे, अब खुद को बचाने के लिए यहाँ शेलिंग हो रही थी। फिर ये रिलेशन के जितने भी आदमी अपनी गाड़ी में बैठे स्कॉर्पियो में, तो सब बिठा के बच्चे ये भी थे, सारे थे, ये यहाँ से निकले तो उधर मोहरा के नज़दीक पहुँचे, यहाँ से कोई 3 किलोमीटर दूर, तो वहाँ शेलिंग हो गई। उसी का एक शेल इसको आ गया गाड़ी के बीच में से अंदर और इसका सर आधा काट दिया।
और कौन था गाड़ी में?
और भी थी, दूसरी उसकी थी, दूसरे भाई की बीवी, वो भी जख्मी हो गई। और थे हमारे रिलेशन के काफ़ी बंदे उसमें, तो बाकी बच गए, तो यही बीच में आ गए। फिर इनको हॉस्पिटल लिया, बारामूला मोहरा, फिर उसके बाद बारामूला, तो बारामूला पहुँचते ये फिर दम तोड़ दिया।
I'm here at the line of control in Uri for the 4th time during this visit. I came here first just a couple of days after the Pahalgam terror attack. Then I came after ceasefire violations began by the Pakistan army. Then I arrived when Pakistan shelling began in the aftermath of Operation Synindhur. And now I'm here finally 2 days after what has become one of the biggest confrontations between India and Pakistan. Sophisticated weapons have been used, but not very far from where I'm standing, across there in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, heavy artillery has continued to be used here in the Uri sector. How long is it going to continue? The big question boils down to whether this is all going to lead to an escalation again or a de-escalation. The eye of the storm Uri sector, which every Indian recognizes, every Indian knows, is now about the people living here, the army posts here that continue to face fire but are giving it back in a huge way to the Pakistan army, with a first video released today by the Indian army depicting actual destruction of a Pakistan army post. We don't know if it was here in Uri or any of the many other sectors along the line of control. What is clear is that the Pakistan army has activated and created a huge amount of violence on this frontier for the last 15 days and running. How long it's going to continue depends on whether Pakistan decides to seize the opportunity to de-escalate or whether it has the stomach for more combat. At the line of control in Uri sector with Ashwini Mehra, Shiv Aroor, NDTV.